Welcome, everybody, back to the Dave Knows Comics live stream. I'm your host, David Lee, and welcome back to the Really Big Show. Now, as I mentioned last week, this was something I definitely wanted to talk about for a while now, and finally got the clearance to do it, as this seems to be a slow week for comic book. Mentioned last week. Hey there, how's everybody going? Hey there, True Sinister. Hey there, Ben Espinoza. Good to see you guys. Alright, so as I mentioned before, last week I did bring this up, and I wanted to get more in depth on it because we were talking about Cassandra Cain and her appearance in the Birds of Prey film and how it was very off-brand, very different from what you're used to seeing in the character. So, one thing that I did say was I didn't 100% have a problem with that. I understand people's desire for a comic book accurate Cassandra Cain, but one of the major things I said was I was okay with it, and for a number of reasons, but one of them was because of this stereotype. So what am I talking about? Well, I think we notice something really quick here. I think if we look at Cassandra Cain from the comic books, we remember that there was a period of time where she just didn't talk. She was completely mute. We didn't know what she was all about, but she just didn't talk. And on top of that, adding to her mysterious past and all that, she was also one of the most deadliest women there were. She was very scary, very threatening, super violent, and that's just who the character was. And that's how things went. But okay, whoa, True Sinister says something. Yeah, no Batman and SS and the Birds of Prey. Who? But yeah, I wasn't expecting to see Batman in that movie. But anyway, so that's one thing. But let's not forget about this one, as you recognize from the thumbnail. Let's look at, here we got Miho, little Miho from Sin City. Yet another dangerous assassin girl, very violent, very numb to violence also, and of course, didn't really talk. Pretty much quiet. All right, and if that wasn't enough, I got one more for you. The character of the female from The Boys. Super violent, super unfazed by violence, very scary, and of course, doesn't really talk. Now, most of these characters are mute by choice. It's not really a stereotype where they can't talk, and while some people would excuse this stereotype as saying, oh, it's probably because they don't speak English. The truth is, they do. And I just want to point this out, that I want to know what's up with this. It's bizarrely specific when you say that you have an ultra-violent Asian female who doesn't talk, even though they can talk, and can't speak English. So, what's up with that? My overall arching point on this is that while we see Cassandra Cain in Birds of Prey, she is very different. But I'm not necessarily that upset about it, because at least this breaks the stereotype trope of having a mute Asian girl who's excessively violent and unfazed by horrendous violence. It just seems like a weird thing that keeps on happening. Suicide Squad and True Sinister. Well, I wasn't expecting to see them in. I wasn't expecting to see them either. True Sinister. Okay. True Sinister also says the guy claims to run Gotham and has run over it. Don't you think the bats will stop him? Well, that is a fair point. Yes, but again, wasn't expecting him. I think the movie suffered from several issues. It really shouldn't have taken place in Gotham either, as far as I'm concerned. They were portrayed as bonding, but that didn't happen. Or maybe it did. Who knows? They don't talk about it. But yeah, so I want to know, what's up with this? Why is this a perpetual thing? We see that it just seems very weird to me. Because as far as I know, in real life, I don't think this is much of a real life thing that people are drawing from. And if they do, then what is up with that? But yeah, I don't know where the stereotype has originated from. I don't know why it keeps on going. And as I've said before, I'm not big for talking about, I do it occasionally, but I don't really bring it up all that much in terms of racial stereotype and all that stuff. It's one of those things I bring up from time to time. But yeah, this was something I've been wanting to talk about, because I just find it very odd that you see at least 3 incidences of this happening in comic books. And I just would love to know, why is this a thing? Where does it come from? especially since we've seen in the comics these characters do eventually talk. So what's the point? And another thing, it doesn't really bother me per se, but I am kind of curious to know why. It seems to me that the actress who plays the female in The Boys is older than what the comic book character is supposed to be, which is fine, except they do refer to her as like a girl a lot. It's like, oh, she's this young girl, or she's just a kid, and everything like that. I was like, I'm pretty sure she's an adult woman. I find it odd that they refer to her age as, they do seem to treat her as if she's significantly younger than she actually is. Because if I'm not mistaken, I believe the actress who plays her is actually currently 28. True Sister. It seems badass not to talk, but yes. Hey, what's up, Vinny Montana? Remember the character from The Boys who didn't talk? Yep, no, that was the female, as I pointed out. This character right here, I just had her up. Female, yeah. Yeah, didn't talk either. And I don't know if it's about the badassery. And also, again, how come there are male characters or, non-Asian female characters who are badass and talk all the time? The Punisher, let's not forget about him, or the other characters in The Boys. I'm just pointing out that Thinker versus Monitor, it just doesn't seem, it seems, name me, how about this? Name me, if you can, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, name me a black male comic book character who doesn't talk. Wait, I already thought of one. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, I've already thought of one. There's a couple of them, or at least one that I can think of. But see how common this is. This fits the stereotype. Or, name me someone who is a badass assassin who doesn't talk and ultra-violent and is not fazed by violence. That's any other race and gender other than Asian female. Can you name one? Again, not saying it doesn't exist. I just would like to know if you can. It just seems odd to me. And I also wouldn't be opposed. And the other thing is, if we were explained that these characters don't talk for a reason, then I would say okay. Like if they just don't talk because of a language barrier thing, they actually do speaking. And here's another one. This is an offshoot of this one. There's also this common thread where we see this. We see this more in I feel we see this more in movies, where a character who speaks Spanish actually reveals they speak English towards the end of the movie. They did this in Logan. And it's like, why did you do this for? It doesn't make any sense. This is like, oh, here's plot exposition. And then there's that one part where the little girl is in the truck with Logan, and she's yelling at him in Spanish. Clearly, she has something that's very important she has to say, and she does speak English. She just doesn't right then and there for no reason. Then, at the end of the movie, in the third act, now I will speak English for some reason. Now it became enough to let you know that I know what you're talking about. It's like, why? I just don't get certain things like this. It just seems like an odd thing. Hello, Muhammad. Peace to you as well. Thinker versus Monitor. Monitor. I think. No pun intended. So it's just, there's a lot of things that go on. So yeah, if they didn't speak English and that's why they just weren't talking, okay, because they realized there's no point to it, then fine. But then all these characters eventually get revealed that they do speak and understand English, so that makes it even weirder to me that I don't get why this is a thing. Or if there was some sort of reason why they were mute, of some physical inability to speak. If they had a physical inability to speak, then fine, I get it. But, because I know Jericho from the comic books, Slade's son, has largely been known as being mute. Plot, suspense, or humor. It doesn't work. It makes zero sense. If we're talking about the speaking Spanish and then eventually revealing you speak English thing, makes absolutely no sense. Because, as I said, you see this, I feel like I've seen this a lot, where it's someone who speaks Spanish, they speak Spanish like the whole movie, and then at the end, I reveal that I speak English. It's like, you could have done this a while. And it's not like some anonymity thing, or it's like, I don't know if I could trust you, then why are you with them? It doesn't make, there is no good reason why you would do that. From a writing standpoint, okay, plot, sense of humor, all right. It's supposed to be funny, I guess. I don't think it's funny. Or plot suspense, fine, but it's plot suspense at the expense of common sense. That's stupid. Just plain stupid as far as I'm concerned, along with this non-speaking, ultra-violent, unfazed by violence, Asian female stereotype. Again, just my thought on that. Especially considering that when you look, going back to the case of going back to the case of Miho. Going back to the case of Miho, the other thing I think is weird about Miho's. It's cool. I'm not gonna say it wasn't cool, but like she's bizarrely good at what she does. Like I was thinking about it when she blocks the gun barrel by just throwing that little metal rod into the gun barrel. I mean, like you ever stop to think how like ridiculous that is? That she can throw a metal rod perfectly precisely inside a barrel of a gun. Like anybody else think that was like I know we live in a comic book world where there are flying aliens and Martians and all that stuff like that, but yeah, sometimes something like that I'm like, what, really? Yeah, and I know that Sin City is over the top and all that. I'm just saying that was one of those things that even for me was a little, I was like, huh. Not saying it was bad, just saying, I'm like, okay. Like, it was a weird exchange. Remember, like, she just does it, and he's like, don't fire. It'll backfire. She's blocked the barrel. Like, it was like a weird series of events. Like, I know, like, plot-wise, it was lining up for certain things, but I just thought it was a very weird sequence. She throws it, then then Clive Owen warned in his American accent, blocks, tells him that he blocked it. Somehow, Rafferty didn't notice it was in, and then Benicio del Toro doesn't notice it's in. Then he gets warned by Clive Owen. Then he fires, and he tells exactly what's going to happen. He fires anyway. Like, I just thought that whole scene was very weird. I'm not saying it's bad, just saying I found it a very odd thing. All right, True Sister, maybe in other cultures, women aren't supposed to talk as much as men. That is not true in any way, shape, or form anymore. It's, again, there's a lot of weird, like, Asian stereotypes that people think about that were from, like, seemingly a bajillion years ago. So, like, again, not the case. And also, let's look at it this way. Miho, with the exception of when Rafferty and Dwight show up, she's surrounded by pretty much women. So it's not like, oh, she's not supposed to talk as much as men. Like, she's surrounded by women. So, like, she's surrounded with all the other hookers. And, and also, she's a hooker and she carries around a sword. Or maybe she's not a hooker. Maybe she's just a bodyguard for hookers. Anyway, there's that. And plus, let's remember, Cassandra Cain was raised by David Cain and also Lady Shiva. And technically Batman, if you want to count her as being raised by Batman when she came around. So it's like so it's not like, oh, culturally speaking, she was raised to not speak. She was raised to be a ninja assassin, but at the same hand, she gets it. Like, there's no way you're telling me they're not. No, I know you're not saying they're supposed to. But A, it's an outmoded stereotype. But Cassandra Cain, last I checked, was raised in America. Last I checked. Or in different parts around the world. I could be wrong about that. Don't get me wrong. And the female was raised in a laboratory, or partially raised when they were doing all the experiments on her. So I don't think her not speaking. Now you could give that as a reason for her speaking less because she was raised in a lab, but it's not to say, she knows very little about her past. So specifically when you say, oh, maybe it's because culturally speaking, that's the way she was brought up. She didn't remember most of how she was brought up, or she was raised in a lab and she was tortured under different conditions. So again, any old, antiquated, no longer really important or relevant cultural stereotypes that people want to throw at it don't exist as an excuse for any of these characters on top of that. Batman doesn't... is currently not in Joker, not in Birds of Prey, not anything. That's right. Batman, it does not exist in DC EU movies. So, yeah, so just several things that I want to point out is, so any cultural appropriation you want to talk about or any cultural stereotypes, nope, not a factor in these three that I've mentioned as far as I could tell. Miho, possibly, but even so, doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, so it was just something I want to discuss. Let me know what you think about this. As always, we're going to be checking out the wrestling live stream later on. We're going to be going there after later on, not too long. So definitely got a lot to talk about in the world of wrestling. So yeah, this was an episode I wanted to discuss. Again, it's a thing. I'm not offended by it or anything. I just would like to know, why does it persist in the way that it does? It's just something that I've been curious about. It's that it exists in multiple platforms, and there are multiple characters like this in different companies. It's not like DC's obsession with talking apes, where there's a reason why, but they have like a bajillion talking apes. Okay, that's like a DC thing. Yeah, Marvel has it too. Duh, yeah, I mean, I got my own issues with that too. But it's just something that three very different comic book companies decided, very different comic book titles, all decided to do. And it's not just one thing, it's a series of things. It's the ultraviolet, unfazed by ultraviolence, and mute, and Asian and female. It's all these things that I would like to know. Why does it exist in this perfect package as many times as it does? That's what I'm asking. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on why that is, and how do you feel about it? Are you sick of it? Are you thinking we should never see this again? Are you thinking we probably will see this again? Let me know, and as always, Dave knows.